Welcome back to Doha's Hamad International Airport, where I'm spending a brief time in this very quiet, new Al-Mourjan business class lounge up by the Orchard, in the extended part of the airport. I can highly recommend heading up here to escape the usual midnight crowds at the older lounge in the main concourse. And the Orchard is pretty nice as well. I don't have quite as much time as I'd like to check all this out because it's time to go get on board this very exciting Qatar Airways 787-8 flight to Harare via Lusaka. No surprise, it's a bus gate and we drive seemingly to Bahrain before we finally find our aircraft. I'm sure I'm not the first one to make that joke. These 787s may not be the fanciest planes Qatar Airways flies, but they're nevertheless very comfortable inside. And I'm liking the pink QR mood lighting at 2 a.m.
Looking up to safety and comfort the cabin, so cabin sensor for both, cabin signals at GAL, and our one-way team. This morning we're looking at 6 hours and 57 minutes flight time, climbing to the 38,000 feet, looking at a pleasant ride along the route with additional light shows. Therefore, I'd like to recommend you to keep your seatbelts fastened at all times while seated, even if the signal sign is switched on.
The usual choice of Brut and Rosé champagne is a nice luxury. As is often the case on Qatar, the Rosé is the superior offering today. Anyway, let's get going down to southern Africa. Here's a quick look at the seat as we cruise down towards Saudi Arabia. I get another glass of champagne and some nuts after takeoff, but I'm so tired at this point I pretty much pass right out and miss dinner. I wake up briefly to catch the sunrise behind us as we cruise over Somalia. This is the sort of thing I love about travel. Being up in the air, far from home, over exotic lands, seeing the sunrise, you just can't beat it. Then it's about 5 hours later and it's time for breakfast. I'm way too tired still, but I slept like a rock in this seat. Almost a shame this flight to Lusaka is under 7 hours long. Alright, so this flight feels very short because I passed out shortly after takeoff, and it's a pretty short flight anyway, under 7 hours, and overnight flight, so it's an older product but still very comfortable, not as private. Food is great. It seems like they're back to their full service the way they were before. The last time I flew Qatar Airways a couple of years ago, it was still kind of... Yeah, oh, thank you. The last time I flew Qatar Airways a couple of years ago, they were still kind of emerging from the pandemic. It wasn't back to full service, so it seems like it's the old great Qatar Airways that I know and love. Headed into the most unknown part of the adventure for me, landing in Lusaka in about 45 minutes. I think we have about an hour on the ground there, and then another 45-minute hop down to Harare. Well, I've got my Qatar Airways pajamas on, which are actually really nice. They fit really well. I like this little thing. They're from the White Company. I'm going to have my second coffee, and then see what it looks like coming into Lusaka. By the way, I love this blanket that Qatar Airways offers. They've had this for years. It's amazing. It's so nice to sleep with. Plush, soft purple thing on the outside. These pillows I've always been annoyed by. Have little sayings on them, you know? It's a bit like having a poster up in your house that says, live, laugh, love. But okay, you know, it's not the worst of things that an airline could do.
Approaching our destination, Lusaka. Local time is 48 minutes past 7 a.m. Subject to return control. We should be in the ground in the next 45 minutes.
sitting on the ground now in Lusaka while they clean the aircraft, and everyone is getting off here, disembark, and then they have to go through and check that the luggage that's in the overhead bins belongs to people who are still on the plane. It's kind of a strange, slightly inefficient seeming process, but maybe there's no better way. Oh, and they also check the boarding pass of everyone who's getting off here to make sure it's really their final destination. They didn't decide to just get off early. Weird one. Anyway, it's an unusual situation to sit on a plane while it gets cleaned, and then the whole thing gets restarted again with a new crew in order to do the next leg. I think I've only done it once before in Sao Paulo, way back in the day. Buenos Aires to London, that stopped in Sao Paulo on British Airways 747. So yeah, funny feeling to sit here, kind of tired after a short overnight flight, and watch all this activity unfold. Also, interestingly, they change crews here in Lusaka, and I guess that's because airline crews, or the airline itself, don't want the crews staying in Harare. This starts to get pretty boring as we spend about 2 hours on the ground here while nothing much happens. Watching the plane get cleaned and the crew change over is fun for a while, but now I'm anxious to do the last little hop down to Harare. It's usually less than a 40-minute flight across the border to Zimbabwe, which is pretty cool to do on a Qatar Airways 787, but it makes sitting around on the ground after not getting enough sleep the night before a little challenging.
وما كنا له مقرنين وإنا إلى ربنا لمنقلبون.
This is an annoying routing via Lusaka, but overall, what a great way to get down to Zimbabwe. Qatar Airways, as ever, manages to feel a little bit magical between the incredible service, the luxurious dine-on-demand menu, and the way they've outfitted the cabins, even with this older seat.
And approximately 70 kilometers to run, we should be reaching Harare at 10:45 local time. Putting us well ahead of weather in Harare, 25 degrees Celsius, clear skies, and with the lighting variable for our end.
There's no time.
the seatbelt fastened until the aircraft is completely stopped and the seatbelt sign is switched off.
Okay, I can't believe I'm actually in Zimbabwe. I had this dream of flying the 737-200. I thought of it a couple weeks ago when I started flying, and I thought, I gotta do that. And now, a couple weeks later, here I am. Although I don't see the 737 here. I saw the ERJ. But next couple days, the mission is track down that 737-200 and fly it, hopefully to Victoria Falls. Should be a nice bonus to go there. Anyway, exciting to be in Harare. Let's check out what happens here. In Harare for Flight Radar 24, I'm Gabriel Leigh.